Welcome to Economics Trainer. This video was made to help you strengthen your skills in microeconomics. Here we have a sample question, care of brighttutoring.ca. It's the kind of question you'd expect to see on a test in a second-year microeconomics class. Let's work through it together. So here's the question. Suppose we have a consumer with a Cobb-Douglas utility function where u equals x to the 0.5 times y to the 0.5, which gives them the marginal utilities of mux equals 0.5 times x to the negative 0.5, y to the 0.5, and the muy equal to 0.5, x to the 0.5, y to the negative 0.5. The consumer has an income of $32 to spend on good X and Y. And we have three questions here to figure out. The first two, we're given prices of X equals 2, and the price of Y is the same at $2 as well. And then the second question, the price of X increases to 8, and the price of Y stays the same at 2. So I've already shown you in an earlier video how to do these questions with the optimal bundles. So I want to focus on the third question down here, which is figuring out the signs of the income and substitution effect. So using the intuition for standard preferences, which is a Cobb-Douglas utility function here, we can figure out the signs of the income and substitution effects from this price change before calculating them. So let's work on this question down here. So what we have here is our price change. So to start off with our income and substitution effect, let's draw it out in a graph so we can visualize it here. So let's see. We have X and Y. And then if you draw out the budget constraint, where income equals spending, you have these 2 points down here, which is the real income, I over PX, and the income divided by price of Y up here. So you can see here to start off, we see, okay, for X and Y, if we take 32 divided by 2, we get 16 for each of them. So that's the maximum amount the consumer can buy of each good, X and Y, to start. And then for the second part here, you can see, okay, PX increases to 8. So that's going to take this point here, and it's going to be 32 divided by 8, which is going to be 4. So it's going to move it down to here. So we're going to have this shift in here. And you can see here, all these bundles, and here, this base here is lost. So this base here is not affordable anymore. Now that's the key thing for visualizing the income effect, which you can also think about here by answering this question. Is, does the consumer feel richer? If they feel richer, they'll have a positive income effect. Or if they feel poorer, they'll have a negative income effect. And you can figure out the sign based on that. And you can also look at the graph here and you say, okay, well, they lost all these bundles. They can't afford them anymore because the price of X increased. So what happens here is they have to have a negative income effect for both goods. So let's draw this out here. We have the income effect, substitution effect, and then we'll have total effect. And then we figure it out for each good. So we have X, Y. So for the income effect, they lost all these bundles, so it's negative for both goods. And then for the substitution effect, you can answer it with this question here. Is the good relatively cheaper? So if it's cheaper, they're going to substitute into it, or is it going to be relatively expensive? So here, to figure that out, what you do is you look at the slope. You can see the slope here is the negative ratio of prices, or negative relative prices. So you can look at that mathematically, or you can just look at the graph here. You say, okay, the slope was here, and now it's down here. So you can see it's going to get steeper. So in terms of good x, it's pretty straightforward. Did it get more expensive or cheaper? Well, yeah, it got more expensive. It went from 2 to 8. So that one's going to be a negative substitution effect for x. And then for y, that's where the keyword relatively comes in, because its price didn't change. It stayed the same at $2, but relative, it's relatively cheaper now. So it's going to have a positive substitution effect here. So when you look at the total effect, it's pretty intuitive. When the price of x increases, you buy less in total. So you're going to have a negative for the total effect. And then for y, we have a negative and a positive. We can't figure it out just yet. That's the key thing about intuition, is just signing it out. But to figure this out, we'll have to do the math and solve it out. So here what we have at the end of the day, we have our income effect is negative for both goods. For x, the substitution is negative, and for y, it's positive. And in the next video coming up, I'll show you how to calculate these, and then we can figure out that question mark over here. But for now, that's how you do that question. This video is brought to you by people who like, share, and subscribe to this channel. You can also support my work by buying me a coffee.